Does this seem familiar?
I have loved you ever since I've known you, Joe. I couldn't help it. And I tried to show and you wouldn't let me, which is fine.
No.
But I must make you here now and give me an answer because I cannot go on like this any longer.
Please
I gave up
don't.
billiards. I gave up everything you didn't like. I'm happy I did. It's fine.
Maybe you have your own version. I gave up my friends for you, my cats. I gave up my interest in fashion for you. Or I've gone to all of your games and I adopted your friends as my own, only to hear or feel this.
I don't see why I can't love you as you want me to. I don't know why.
Can't.
No, I can't change how I feel, and it would be a lie to say I do when I don't.
I get it. It's survival skills masquerading as relationship skills again. If you find yourself giving yourself up for your partner, or for your children for that matter, it's going to cost you a lot more than you might expect in the long run. Of course, rejection like you just watched in that clip, that can be crushing. But when you do this for the long term, hoping to get love in return for your sacrifice, a lot is happening behind the scenes. Ultimately, it's an attempt to avoid conflict and the potential that your partner will reject you for not being accommodating enough. But what really happens is what we see with Joe in the clip. When someone empties themselves out as a person to win someone else's love, approval, or connection, it's precisely that emptying out that becomes icky for the other person. Icky, it's a clinical term. It feels needy because the object of love, in this instance, Joe, comes to feel responsible for the emotional well-being of the person who's trying to get their attention and love. And in this case, it could be your partner. Think of it. If you're doing this and you hope that your partner will see what you're doing and love you for it, what kind of desperation are you feeling that might be heaping on to your partner? And they feel it, I promise. Don't get me wrong. I know that there are healthy examples of this. But what I'm talking about to you right now is that underlying motivation.
You know, I figured you'd love me, Joe.
The other thing to realize here is that this could be going on in your head, even if you have a loving, safe relationship. But it will be the actions that you take that are motivated by desperation that will eventually lead to problems for you. It might not feel like a big deal today, but there are some significant problems that can develop for you if you're not actively participating in your own identity developing activities in favor of things that you're doing for your partner in hopes that they'll love you more. So the first one is that you'll lose who you are. Maybe you don't even know who you are. Maybe you never had a sense of yourself because of your history. But trying to merge with the person that you're focusing on means that you express less and less of your true self. It's probably people pleasing from you trying to keep yourself safe earlier in your life, but that's a survival skill, again, not a relationship skill. Keep doing it, and then you're going to end up with feelings of emptiness and confusion. Those feelings that you have now, but they're going to just get stronger because you're trying to get something you need in a way that doesn't work. So the worst case scenario for this is you'll end up with someone who's perfectly happy to take advantage of your self-sacrificing approach without being interested in your well-being. If you're doing this, you're also going to lose your ability to rely on yourself for validation. Your self-worth and happiness become dependent on your partner, and that is so dangerous. Because if they've had a bad day, or for some reason they can't boost you emotionally, you feel rejected. And whether or not you say that you feel rejected, resentment builds up. If you don't say anything, you get resentful. If you do say something, they get resentful. because there's no room for them and their emotions when they feel obligated to take care of you and your emotions. So there's no room for them to have a bad day because you're always needing so much from them. This leads to imbalance in your relationship. It becomes a situation where one partner is the caretaker and you become increasingly dependent. And that leads to strain in your relationship, resentment, and burnout because you're not standing on your own feet emotionally. And ultimately, really, when we get down to it, this is really a problem with boundaries because healthy relationships have boundaries between partners. And your ability to rely on yourself for emotional support is essential to a healthy relationship. Again, it's nice to be able to depend on your partner for emotional support, but you need to be able to stand on your own feet when they aren't available to do that, which means that you're not holding your breath, waiting for them to soothe you when you're going through an emotion. And when you have that problem with boundaries, right? So when I'm talking about relationship boundaries, I'm talking about there's a boundary around your own emotions because you know they're your responsibility. And there's a boundary around your partner's emotions. And you know that you can take care of yourself and you can see when your partner needs space and you're able to give that without feeling put out or disappointed or depressed or overly scared that this means something about your relationship. There's a normal ebb and flow of availability and lack of availability, of closeness and independence in healthy relationships. But if you can't stand on your own feet emotionally, those boundaries don't exist. And that's what ultimately puts too much strain on the relationship. So it means that your anxiety and your feelings of insecurity can get triggered if you're doing the things that you saw in the clip at the beginning, when your partner isn't in a happy or supportive mood. And they're allowed to not be happy, or they're allowed to be feeling unsupportive, or maybe needing your support instead of always giving it. And they're allowed. That's allowed. But when you're really dependent on them for your emotional well-being, it doesn't happen. And all of this starts by giving things away to win their love. So you're really likely in this scenario to be recreating traumatic patterns from your past relationships when you seek validation from your partner. And it's also likely to cause you to put yourself in a situation where you will tolerate unhealthy behaviors as the price you're willing to pay for receiving validation from this person. And when that happens, now you're back to thinking that there's something wrong with you. So instead of their unhealthy behaviors being something that you go, oh, well, that's not okay, putting a boundary around it, you actually say, oh, they must be doing this thing because I'm not good enough. And that's a subconscious thought. But when you are a people pleaser, because you've had a history of trauma, when you see unhealthy behaviors from your partner, it just encourages you to bring more survival skills out of your bag instead of saying, hey, pal, what you're doing right now is not okay. So I'm going to give you some space so you can get that under wraps. And I'll be over here until you're ready to interact again. No, that doesn't happen because you're so desperate for emotional support and validation from someone. And no one should be expected to provide that 100% of the time. So when you're actually in this pattern from past relationships and seeking that validation, and now you're back to thinking something's wrong with you, you're feeling compelled again to let go of yourself so that you can figure out what you need to do to get this person's love, to win it back. It's really a vicious cycle. And it comes from the lie that you believe that's true from your childhood. This is a really good quote that helps you understand that children who are in unfortunate circumstances where they are being harmed are most of the time making the error that it's them, there's something wrong with them, instead of the conditions, the situation, the circumstance that they're in. So I want you to think about that. How much of your circumstances and your survival skills are you pulling forward? Your solution is to focus on your healing and your personal development. You've got to learn the difference between survival skills that feel so natural to you that you think they are who you are. Yeah, I know you're thinking that this tendency to mesh with your partner is just you being super loving and selfless as a person. I see you. It's not you. That's a trauma response. So, if you found this video helpful, maybe a little jarring and eye-opening, and it's making you think about the things that you've been doing that you thought were normal, I want you to have my free relationship rights checklist. It outlines 14 declarations that are true about healthy relationships, that are true about your rights in a healthy relationship. And as a bonus, when you get that, I also provide an in-depth video training about each aspect on the checklist. That's only available to people who take me up on my free offer for the relationship rights checklist. So you can find that link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and next week I'm going to talk about what happens when you suppress your personal opinions. It's a survival strategy and totally undermines you and your healthy relationship. I'm Tamara Ridge. Thanks for watching. See you next week.